The IS fighters comes just days after the US President Donald Trump said he believed the end of the IS caliphate could be declared in the coming week. But as the BBC's Sebastian Usher reports, the threat still remains in the region.
The US-backed SDF has played a key role in the war against IS in Syria. Its biggest victory was to drive the jihadists out of their de facto capital, Raqqa. In the past few months, it's picked off one town, village or hamlet after another in the corner of northeastern Syria to which IS fighters have been driven. All that's left for the jihadists there are a few square miles next to the Iraqi border. A far cry from the caliphate the group once declared across huge swathes of Syria and Iraq. The SDF delayed its final attack until thousands of civilians in the area had been able to get out. Now they say the decisive battle is underway.
The United States military, our coalition partners, and the Syrian Democratic Forces have liberated virtually all of the territory previously held by ISIS in Syria and Iraq.
Last week, President Trump said the total defeat of IS could be announced within days. That certainly suits his agenda of withdrawing all US troops from Syria. But he's been criticised before for declaring final victory over IS prematurely. Caution is still needed. IS holds another sliver of territory in Syria further west, while its sleeper cells remain active. And it's the same story in Iraq. The group's ability to continue a guerrilla insurgency persists. The fate of its hostages, such as the British journalist John Cantley, remains unclear, as does that of its leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Its most effective foe, the SDF, also faces an uncertain future if and when its US backers leave.
Sebastian Usher reporting there for the BBC. It's 24 minutes past 8.
The head of NASA says they plan to send humans to the moon again, but this time they'll stay. The space agency says they'll start with an orbiting lunar outpost designed to send astronauts to the surface and then build a more permanent structure on the moon. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine says the astronauts will venture further onto the lunar surface and conduct new research. The missions will also, according to Mr. Bridenstine, serve as a proving ground for technologies that will take humans even further into the reaches of space. Dr. Ken Kramer, a journalist who covers space, told the BBC it's been 50 years since people first walked on the moon. A new technology is being designed for the return.
We're developing SLS rocket and the Orion capsule to do that. And we're also developing a mini space station at the moon that they will launch to, and that's called the Gateway. We want to launch the first element of the Gateway in 2022. Then we'll send an astronaut to go into lunar orbit around 2023. And then we want to test a human lander in 2024. And then hopefully, if that all works out, we will send the first humans back to the moon in 2028. And hopefully Europe is going to be part of that, because Europe is a big part of the Orion capsule program that will carry the humans to the moon.
But after half a century away, why go back now?
Well, there's been a developing interest. You know, unfortunately, the politicians 50 years ago ended the Apollo program. Both of the Bushes wanted to return to the moon, but the Congress didn't quite agree. Now there seems to be a consensus among many nations, U.S., Europe, Russia and China, that it's important to go back to the moon. So there's been a change in the political mindset about it. And that's what it takes, because we have the technology. What we need to go to the moon is political willpower and the funding. And so that's what seems to be changing now.
And has China's recent trip to the dark side of the moon prompted this new impetus on the part of NASA?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm really glad China's pursuing their lunar dreams, because that is what's going to spur the Western countries into action, I believe. So, and I hope. So, yeah, I'm all for China going to the moon, and definitely a little bit of competition is absolutely good. Hopefully we'll also work with them, because if we can work together as humanity, it'll cut the costs down, and we can use the resources from each country to land there, and probably send an international crew when we do land on the moon.
So people living on the moon sounds a lot like science fiction, but Dr. Kramer says it's likely to look more prosaic, like the research stations in Antarctica.
So everybody has Antarctic research stations, and that's pretty much the model. that we're hoping to build. And that, again, with international resources, would cut the cost down, and it would also make for a bigger station. So we would set that down on the moon, perhaps near the South Pole, where there's a lot of water and you can then live off the land, so to speak, mine the water that we know is in those craters. That'll give us hydrogen and oxygen, so you can breathe the oxygen, and you can use the hydrogen and oxygen also to create rocket fuel. So international participation like Antarctica really would be an ideal way to go.
That's Dr. Ken Kramer. He's a journalist who covers space. 28 minutes past 8.
Quite a bit of feedback on the issues we're covering this morning. Smoking in cars has elicited some feedback from some of you. Nick from Hamilton. Well, no, it's not. It's Nick Hamilton.
I've got Labour taking saying I'm not doing anything. Right. And the Labour minister saying, well, no, we don't want you to do this. So I'm sort of saying, well, there's a bit of a fine line there. And I'm not sure how much ministers are, how much ministry staff. There's just, hey, one question. I'm writing a column for the Waimea and also Weekly. Yep. I want to say some positive things about the merged civil defence operation between Nelson. Can you read what move into a merged operation?
No. Grab Roger, he'll tell you. Because I think since I've been involved, I think it's been combined.
Right.
So I can't remember when that started.
Now, the other little issue I've got is at my caravan this morning at Saxon, I've got a Mr. Jenner. He's got Avery on Pitfield Road to feed birds of feed. He's been in touch with Matt. Matt said budgies don't. What?
It's not too bad. It's full days I've been getting a bit over it. Like 7 days now, but MPI. That's right. Today is 4 days. But good, it's like, and he needs a break. Yes. Thank you.
There were some people do I talk to them right now, try and put some pressure on there, or just see if they can, because I think the thing is, it's been a really good night. Yeah, things are going really well, and I think after this, they're going to be having active discussions to see when can well, I think all evacuations be lifted. And I think the right time or if we're going to do it today, then it's probably because that's the time that they need to be in it at the end of the day. So those are the discussions. It may. But I don't know when we're going to know that. I think after this press conference, then it's going to be those active discussions.
Yes, you were clearly on the list.
I haven't. And I'm assuming it's waiting for the township also.
No, including Redwood Eaves teapot.
What about pigeon?
Not sure about pigeon.
The whole nation is letting you smile a little bit or letting you smile.
How are you all this morning? Everyone good? Roger's starting, so I'm not starting, don't worry.
Got your lines?
Yeah, he's got them.
It's just writing them.
Shoots from that.
One skillful operator.
You get tired of it, don't you?
Yes.
I think it's a good line.
And my colleagues don't help.
Roger. Yeah. Roger will be leading off, and then he'll hand over to Fire, MPI, and then I think he'll offer questions for police, and then I'll make a comment. And do you want to make a comment about ongoing support, or shall I say that for you? Because what I do each time is say the government and the ministry of
Just so appreciate it.
right, gee. Yes. All good? All good. Yeah.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roger Ball. I'm the Nelson Tasman Controller for Civil Defence. We've had a good couple of days of weather, and there has been some outstanding work on managing the fire, including the construction of both primary and secondary fire breaks. Due to the good progress, we are actively working now on a plan for the re-entry into the Wakefield Township. We will let residents know when it is safe to do so and under what conditions. The areas of Eves Valley, Teapot Valley, Redwood Valley and Pigeon Valley are also being actively assessed. Managed convoys are still underway through Wakefield with cordons and security patrols in place. The program for restricted access to the valleys will continue, as will the public meetings for the residents planned for 5:30 p.m. at Appleby School tonight and 7:30 p.m. at the Hope Community Church tonight. We understand that the best location for people is to be in their own homes. We are trying to facilitate that as soon as it is safe to do so. The total fire ban continues and the machinery ban continues. A big thank you to the many agencies and especially the volunteers for their hard work, to the residents who have been evacuated for their patience, while we make sure that re-entry to homes is safe. At this point, I'd like to ask, first of all, invite any questions that you might have for myself as Controller before we go to Fire and Emergency for an update.
Roger, this re-entry, is it possible, do you think, today, for these residents of Wakefield?
I wouldn't like to put a time or a date on that, but we know that we had a good night last night. The forecast is favourable and we are actively working on a plan. If we have further details for you today, we will announce that as soon as we have them.
When you say re-entry, do you mean just to go back and then come back out, or go home?
We are looking at a plan for the possible re-entry for people to go back home overnight. But if such a plan can come together, it will be on the basis that people will need to remain on alert and prepared to move at short notice.
Might be too early to say, but is there a greater likelihood for that, the re-entry for Wakefield versus Redwood, East Valley, Teapot Valley, that side of things?
It is too early to say. We are treating all of those areas as continuing to be high risk, and I don't want to start breaking them out in terms of relative risk between them. They've all got unique features, and we are looking at all of them at the moment. All right, if there are no further questions for me, I'd just like to ask John Sutton to come forward. Thank you.
Good morning. As Roger said, we had a good day, very productive day yesterday on the fire ground, and it continued overnight. Probably one of the quietest nights for our firefighters last night. The locals would probably have noticed a bit of dew on the ground, so there was a lot higher humidity, which meant that there was less fuel available to burn. Our focus at the moment is moving more into the fire ground and concentrating on removing heat and trying to widen the amount of containment all the way around the fire. We're making significant progress and getting through yesterday, and I hope we get through today. I think I've got the feeling that we're starting to turn a corner. My colleague Grant and I are happy to answer questions.
John, on Saturday morning you told us that there'd be a heat-seeking drone going up over the fire ground in the evening. Is that able to share with us what, over the last couple of nights, that has revealed about the fire?
Yes, that's giving us essential intelligence about the heat that's still in the ground or under the ground that we actually often can't see. It's not able to do the entire fire in one night, but over the 2 nights, I think it has. I haven't seen the total, all the data this morning yet, but I think we've got coverage of the fire over the last 2 nights, and it's able to tell us where we have already got containment, 30 metres in. It's not a large percentage of the total perimeter of the fire, but it's small steps in the right direction. There's still an enormous amount of heat there, and there's a lot of unburned areas. So there'd be hundreds of hectares that haven't burned yet, and so I can see, although we might be turning, I sense we're turning a corner, there'll be firefighters working on that fire well into March.
Are you able to give us some indication
that case?
The temperatures in the ground? No, sorry, I can't, but no.
How concerned are you about the temperatures forecasting to rise this week? Is that a problem?
Yes, it's something that we have to build into our strategic planning, and very much aware of the fact that the wind seems to quite regularly shift from a northerly flow to a southerly flow. And as you would probably have heard, you know, our firefighting efforts have concentrated almost, although we've worked all around the fire, the emphasis has been sort of on two diagonal quadrants, the northwest corner and the southeast corner.
Are there still some areas in the fire that crews can't get to?
There could be, but there's a lot of areas within the fire we don't need to get to. It's a perimeter we need to work on. That's where we focus.
So would you say that you've got the fire under control?
No.
Any further questions for fire and emergency? All right, thanks very much, John. I'm advised that our police colleague has nothing fresh for you this morning, but is certainly available to answer any questions. And I'll just pause there to see if there are any.
Oh, I've got a question.
All right.
Is there any thoughts on when you'd lift the state of emergency?
So that's not a question for me, that's a question for the control.
All right. Thank you. The state of emergency is due to expire on Wednesday morning at 0800. So we will be convening a meeting tomorrow to look at whether to extend that. I don't want to preempt that meeting at this stage, but you can see that the situation is obviously still very serious. Any further questions for police? All right, in that case, I'll ask Ministry for Primary Industries to come forward. Thank you.
Morning all. I'm Charlotte Austin for the Ministry for Primary Industries. I'm the Regional Control Manager down here in Nelson. So MPI is continuing to work with the SPCA, Hu Ha RNZ, several other volunteers on the ground, and animal welfare is continuing to be our top priority. When we can, we are continuing to work behind the cordon, bringing food and water into those cordon areas to animals. Yesterday we were able to enter Pigeon Bay for the first time in several days, and of the areas we were able to reach, no animals, the fire had not reached any grazing areas or any of the animals that we observed. Now we've also been able to assist access to parts of Teapot Valley, Eves Valley and Redwood Valley. Approximately 100 sheep were evacuated from Eves Valley yesterday, and we have fed and watered as many animals as we could in those areas in the time frame. Yesterday afternoon we were also able to assist with emergency evacuations in Wakefield for high priority animals. The SPCA National Rescue Unit managed to evacuate more than 200 birds from Wakefield last night, and we have our teams on standby to continue with assisting these evacuations. Now where possible we are tending to animals in place, as this is less stressful for animals, particularly stock animals. We have more than 300 animals being cared for at the fantastic facilities at the showgrounds. What we do ask though is for members of the public to please not go to those showgrounds if you do not have animals there. It is causing stress for the animals and the people there, so please stay away if you do not have any business there. So anybody, again, the message is continuing. If you are worried about any animals that you do have behind the cordon zones, please call us on 0800 008 333, and we will continue to triage those calls and access those animals where we are able. Thank you.
Good morning everybody, Richard Kempthorne, Mayor of Tasman. As you've heard this morning, the report about the firefighting is really encouraging. So it's delightful to hear that the conditions we've had have been really helpful, and that's been very helpful in being able to contain the fire. What I'd like to say is, for everybody who's been evacuated, this has been a very stressful time, and everybody involved in this event understands it. So do I. I can totally get that people are really concerned if they're out of their house. It's very unsettling, and all of the normal has gone by the boards. So as soon as you can be back, you will. But of course, we have to be aware of safety, and the agencies, civil defence, fire and police, have to take all the issues into account that they need to consider before people can come back. It's also very encouraging that this is being considered for not only Wakefield but the other valleys, Pigeon Valley, Teapot Valley, Eves Valley, Redwood Valley, and all of the impact on both residential properties and businesses in those areas. So my encouragement would be, please continue to be patient. Thank you for your patience to date. It has been tremendous. There has been and continues to be an outpouring of support both within our local community and within New Zealand, and offers from overseas to help. But as you have also heard, we have all of the capacity that is needed for the firefighting effort, so that's great. So right from Northland to Southland, there are people that have come into the region to assist. People are being given breaks so that tiredness doesn't become too much of an issue. So just a real encouragement to be patient. Also, I'd like to thank the Ministry of Civil Defence and the Minister, Chris Farfoy, and also local MPs and the Minister of Primary Industries, Damien O'Connor, for the assistance and support that they've given. That has been really helpful, and particularly with Civil Defence in helping to work through the challenges of this event. It's tremendous to have both the local connection and connectivity and the national support or central support. So if there are no questions for me, I will pass over to Minister Damien O'Connor, who will make a few comments.
Kia ora. Firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge the incredibly well-coordinated effort that has been occurring here over the last number of days. The first objective has been to control the fire, and I would like to acknowledge the efforts of firefighters both in the air and on the ground night and day, who have done an incredible job to get this fire in a better position. I'll leave it up to John to make a call on whether he's got it controlled or not, but fingers crossed. Can I say that from a central government perspective, we're aware that there will be a need for ongoing resources. The issues of welfare for both animals and for people themselves are acute in some cases and will be ongoing. So there is no shortage of resources from central government to follow through what has been a very big challenge for people in this community, and indeed been supported by people from around the country. So acknowledging my colleague Chris Farfoy has been down every day, ensuring that there are no blockages to the coordination that is needed. So thank you for your efforts to get the messages out there. The community should be assured that we're aware of the pressures and that we will move as quickly as we can to get them back into their homes and the place they want to be. Kia ora.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. That's all we have for you this morning, and no doubt we'll see you this afternoon. Thank you.